Hello, Carol.
Hello, hello. Hello.
Here we go. How are we doing?
Good. Looking out at the rain.
Oh, it's raining there.
It's rainy and it's chilly, about 55.
Ooh,
So,
that's a little chilly. That's
yeah,
a
yeah.
little cooler than here because it's 63. So we're
Well, we're below normal for this time of year for us. So, darn. I like it when it's a little bit warmer by now.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Total sense here too. Well, we got a good turnout at 2 o'clock today, and so let's see. We've got some much more activity. It's been a busy day. So I think if it's just you and me for right now, since it's about 7 past the hour, we'll go ahead and we'll read just a little bit from our mitochondriac manifesto.
Yeah, I have a quick question about sleep apnea and the value for the pat with how does the patches affect sleep apnea?
So,
Or
so of course the patches, we don't make medical claims. So the patches were not made for sleep apnea, just as they weren't made for any specific condition, but because they activate and turn back on your original stem cells. If you didn't have sleep apnea before and you develop that over the course of, as you know, you're aging,
yeah,
30s, 40s, sometimes people in their 30s and 40s and 50s begin to develop sleep apnea, then of course it will unring the bell of whatever damage that caused the sleep apnea.
uh-huh.
It will reset that because it's going to replace the tissue with the original tissue. So sometimes sleep apnea can be caused by several different things. So sometimes it's a symptom of something else. The other thing is that sleep apnea, people oftentimes they don't recognize this, but sometimes if you have sleep apnea, people are unaware many times that sleep apnea puts unnecessary pressure on your heart. So if you're suffering from sleep apnea, don't think that it's like something mild that's not a big deal. Because
Right.
for whatever period of time you are going without breathing during whatever that period of time it is that you're sleeping, you are putting unnecessary stress on the heart that could in time, it could lead to a heart problem. It could be a heart attack, cardiac arrest, etc. So
Uh-huh.
it's putting unnecessary pressure on the heart, your cardiovascular system, and in the brain, because while you have the sleep apnea, the heart is experiencing more pressure, and then the brain is being deprived of oxygen.
Right. Right.
Having the brain be deprived, if the brain is being deprived of oxygen, that means that your heart muscle inevitably will be deprived of oxygen. And if that's the case, then you could, in theory, develop death of some of the tissue of the heart, which in time could then lead to all sorts of cardiac presentations. So it's not something to be poo-pooed or go, oh, it's just sleep apnea, it's no big deal, or I'll just get a CPAP or, something like that. It is something that you need to pay attention to when you become aware that you have sleep apnea. Some people are not aware that they even have it. So
Right.
I know that when I was married, I started mentioning, and there are some things that kind of point to it, which are seldomly talked about. So let's talk about it now, because since this is a question that you're posing. So for example,
And yeah, I have several people that have this. We've been having to talk about this subject. So
yeah, so it does, this is not my area of expertise, but over the years I have had certain presentations. And so I can talk a little bit about things that you can do to help with the sleep apnea. So sometimes you will see people who, especially younger people who are in their 30s, because someone in their 30s is not that old, you're still fairly young. You have about 55% of your original stem
yeah,
cells are still, working.
yeah,
You still have, you're nowhere close to middle age at that point, right?
right.
And so sometimes you will see, it's harder to tell with women because women, we shave our legs. So men, for example, men typically have hairy legs. So if you see a man in his early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, and you notice that they have bald spots on their shin, bear in mind that that's not normal. Some of them will argue that, oh, that's just my, athletic socks, my tube socks that are rubbing on my shins, and that's why it's bald. No, that's not true.
Ah,
That's a rationalization. You're telling yourself that the rubbing of the tube socks is going to cause that hair loss, and no, that's not true. The reason why you have the absence of hair is because you have compromised circulation to the limbs, which is what's causing that hair to fall out. And
ah,
so that lack of circulation in the peripheral aspects of your body, which are your legs and your arms, is showing you that there's something else going on that needs to be investigated. So that's it's kind of an earlier symptom that needs to be paid attention to. So sometimes that's a precursor to actually having the sleep apnea. The other thing is people who snore. How many people do we know that snore? Well, a lot of us are, we've all been familiar, it's not something that's that uncommon. But again, snoring is not as innocuous, as innocent as it may sometimes seem. Sometimes snoring is an indicator of sleep apnea. So literature in the past that I have read has said, and I don't know, I think this may have been counteracted. I'd have to do some more research on it. But I remember early on, I remember reading research papers that said that anyone 8 pounds or over, anyone who's 8 pounds or more overweight, oftentimes will snore because it has to do with volume of the body, right?
right.
And so that will cause and lead you to snore. Well, that's one aspect of it, but I do happen to have, do I have it here? Yeah, I do have it here. It just so happens this book about the maxilla, and I didn't know we were going to be talking about this, but this is another book that I refer to quite often. It has to do with the maxillofacial structure of the body. That's like a giant word. All to say that maxillo has to do with the jaw, the upper and the lower jaw. Facial, and it has to do with the structure of your jaw, which does have to do with whether you nasal breathe or whether you mouth breathe. This is another topic that we don't talk enough about, but is so critically important. Because if you are mouth breathing, and people who snore oftentimes don't nasal breathe, they mouth breathe, which is why they're snoring. Okay?
Right.
So the person who wrote this book, this lady, Sandra Kahn, and she wrote it with this guy named Paul Ehrlich. She had issues with her kids who started, for no apparent reason, they started mouth breathing. And as a dentist, she recognized that problem. And when she realized that they were starting to mouth breathe and they're like under 10 years of age, she's like, this needs to be corrected and I can't let this go. And of course, one of the things that happens with people who are mouth breathers is that your palate, and it's like, this is a domino effect, just like we have the domino effect that comes from our lighting environment that we talked about so often. Well, again, we're talking again, the more serious end of things, it's like you have a heart condition, but we've got snoring, we have that not peripheral artery disease, although that might be one of the reasons why you have that lack of circulation in the limbs. But again, it's all connected. And if you pay attention early on, then you can kind of nip things in the bud, curb your behavior, change behavioral patterns so that that no longer presents itself, so that you don't have the ultimate outcome, which later can lead, to a heart attack, as an example. So for example, when it comes to the maxillofacial, the actual jaw, the top and the bottom jaw, when you mouth breathe, over time, what happens then, instead of your palate being rounded like this and you having a square jaw, in time, as you continue to mouth breathe and not breathe through your nose, one of the things that happens is that your palate becomes more A-shaped.
Oh, wow.
So then what happens is that your jaw, instead of being a square jaw, you end up with a more pointed jaw. So let me see if I can show you some pictures of. So for example, here's a young girl. I'll put my glasses on so I can see well. I wasn't, like I said, here is a girl who is a mouth breather. And like I said, this is more of a serious problem than what you would think, but it does change the structure of your face. and there is an issue. With a child, the heart issue is not going to be as prevalent. That's not going to present itself until they're 30, 40, 50 years of age. But again, if you catch it early, then you can nip it in the bud. So you can see this girl, she was a mouth breather here. You could see how her teeth are kind of bucked.
Yeah.
You see how her chin is receded inward.
Uh-huh.
You can see how she does not have a square jaw. It's more of a pointed jaw.
Oh
And
my
over
goodness.
here,
Yeah.
because she was trained to breathe through her nose, you can see how her jaw squared out. Her buck teeth disappeared.
Yeah. It's noticeable.
And her chin came out instead of being receded backward. Okay. So now, instead of breathing through the mouth, unfiltered air is coming in, which is going to lead to more respiratory. Again, it's a domino effect. You have upper respiratory tract infections. You have tonsillitis because you're breathing in unfiltered air. Your nose is meant, you're supposed to breathe through your nose, not through your mouth. Mouth is for talking, nose is for breathing and for smelling. So as you take in filtered air through your nose, guess what? The germs, the viruses, and bacteria are going to get stuck, not just on the nasal lining of your nose, but that's what mucus is for. The mucus, as your body recognizes, oh, there are foreign invaders, it's going to increase the mucus production. Now the mucus, the mucosal lining, will catch the germs, the viruses, and bacteria, and instead of it settling into your tonsils, into your bronchioles, into your alveoli, into your lungs, etc., going into your bloodstream, giving you the flu, giving you stomach viruses, guess what? Get stuck in the mucus, and then you blow your nose, or you spit it out. But one way or the other, it's not staying in your body because it's being caught by the mucus, and then you expectorate that, right?
Exactly.
Or if you begin to get a little bit of a something in your lungs, then you develop a cough, and then through coughing, you expectorate, you like expel it from your body, and it does develop into a fever where, again, the domino effect of you getting sick, being leveled, etc. So the issue of sleep apnea, it can be, it's kind of popular right now to do sleep studies. I know that when I was married, my husband, I remember telling him, because I noticed about the, he had bald spots on the front of his shins, and I'm like, that's not a good sign. I go, you need to get that checked out. And it's like, of course, no. And I'm not a nagger, so I've never been one to complain or nag all the time. I'm like, okay, well, I told you once, and it's like, you're a big boy. If you don't want to listen, then you get to suffer the consequences from listening or not listening. It's like, it's your own body's going to keep a track record. So it's like, my job is to tell you, but if you don't want to listen, you don't want to listen. And so he did snore, which is another sign number 2. And then, of course, then by the time he was like 40, I want to say that started for him probably maybe in his early, like 33, 34, 35, something like that. Well, by the time he was in his mid 40s, guess what? He was starting to have tachycardia and bradycardia. No one in his family has heart history. No one's ever had a heart attack. His mother, his father, his grandmother, his grandfather, his aunt, no one. But now he's starting to have, bradycardia, tachycardia. Well, guess what? Now, again, like I said, he wanted to keep everything the same and keep those symptoms and just ignore them. Well, guess what? He ended up having to have heart surgery. He ended up having to have an ablation, which could have been avoided. But if you don't want to pay attention to the red flags that your body is indicating to you, then, sooner or later, when the thing escalates high enough, then, and again, this is true for everybody. No one singled out. It's just how the human body works. So sleep apnea can be reversed. Positioning, I noticed that so there's another thing. Sometimes it's poor positioning of how your head and your neck is positioned with pillows. I'm not a big proponent in spending $100 or $200 on some sort of crazy expensive pillow. I think that's really unnecessary.
Totally.
I'm not a proponent, but I do notice that some people, you know, there's a proper posture to sleep where you have a clear airway so that you can
Yes.
actually breathe unobstructed.
Yes.
But I've seen people who they go to sleep, and instead of having a clear airway, they're pinched like this.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
you're going to have a hard time breathing if you're going to sleep because you're reading books and then you fall asleep and now your head's propped up like this. Well, you don't really have a clear airway. Well, so let's talk about the structure, and then let's talk about vanity, because we're women and I care about how I look. I care about what my muscles are going to look like, you know, 10, 20, 30 years from now. I don't want to create unnecessary wrinkles because of a bad habit or proper structure. So guess what? You know, if I'm going to sleep, because I have like and I love pillows. You know, I'll be the first to tell you, I don't just have like one or two. I have a whole bunch of pillows on my bed. I love lots of fluffy pillows.
Uh-huh.
But I don't, you know, I'm cognizant that I have to make sure that when I go to sleep, I'm going to position myself so that I have a clear airway, whether I'm not much of a side, you know, some people, doesn't matter if you're a side sleeper, because you could be a side sleeper and still have a proper airway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or on your back. And I don't know too many people that sleep on their stomachs, but I'm sure that there are some. But either way, you just have to make sure that you have a proper airway. The Japanese have, I know that they have a method because the Japanese traditionally don't sleep with a lot of fluffy pillows.
Right.
And
Right.
they tend to sleep more on mats on the floor, on like bamboo made bed mattresses and so forth, but
Yeah.
they're not big on big pillows and so forth. And they're proponents of taking a towel and rolling it up and putting it behind the neck so that in fact, when you're sleeping on a flat surface, your chin is actually up and you have an unobstructed airway. So, so like if you look at the structure of having your neck down, because let's say you have like 3, 4, 5 pillows that are supporting you because you're like reading a book as you're going to sleep, then you fall asleep this way. Well, from an aesthetic point of view, in time, just being down like this is going to create on a woman or a man, it will create jowls because you are pushing down on those muscles and you don't have that supported airway that's open. Okay.
Right.
So if you just start getting into the habit of, and you're going to notice that you'll probably fall asleep more readily, more easily, and you will stay asleep because you have that proper structure. Just take, it doesn't have to be a big bath towel. It could be, you know, the face towels.
Yeah.
Just roll one of those, you put it behind your neck, and then that'll keep you in the proper structure. All that being said, you don't have to use a towel. You can use your pillow. You can just shape your pillow so that it supports the back of your neck so that your chin is not on your chest. It's actually, you actually have that spacing, probably about the size of, we're all proportioned to our body size. So whatever, doesn't matter if you're a 7'2" man or if you're a 4'10" tiny little woman, if you put your fist under your chin, you should have at least that much space for you to, when you position yourself, so that you're not closing off your airway. So this book, yeah, this is a fantastic book. It is a little technical, not super technical, but it does show. There is a gentleman, I'll remember what his name is in a minute. He wrote a book called Breathe, and he is a research journalist. And he comes from a family of doctors, and he actually changed the shape of his face when he started realizing, and he became aware of the fact that he was mouth breathing. And he was a diver. And this book is showing, these are some pretty dramatic changes. And the thing is that there's sometimes things that happen during childhood that all of a sudden you go from being a nasal breather to being a mouth breather. So for example, here's this kid, when he was little, he was fine, right? But something must have happened somewhere along like pre-adolescence. And guess what? Then he became a mouth breather, and look at how receded his chin.
Oh my goodness.
Look at how forward the top jaw is.
That's
and
very, it's dramatic.
It is very dramatic. And And the thing is, in less than a year, you can change the shape of the face by doing some simple things. So people who tend to sleep with their mouth open at night, you can simply put a piece of tape that'll keep your lips closed, and it'll force you to breathe through your nose. The other thing is sometimes children will have an injury when they're young, where they fall down on the grass or wherever. They hit their nose and they have a deviated septum, which is what now causes them to breathe through their mouth as opposed to their nose.
Yeah.
It's because they actually have a structural thing going on that is causing them to breathe through their mouth instead of their nose. And it's also causing them to snore. And so, of course, if we put you on the patches, that's going to be repaired. We don't know how long it'll take, but over the next 6 months to the year, that will get repaired. And so then that will naturally take care of itself. But so those are some of the things that there's lots of other pictures here. This also goes into the whole whether you're bottle fed versus breastfed, because breastfed, you have to use more muscles of the mouth,
Yep.
which are going to strengthen. That means your
Yeah.
tongue muscle has to be stronger, your jaw has to be stronger, your palate has to have a certain structure. With a bottle, you don't have that as much.
That's right.
This
Yeah.
is not to guilt anybody of anything. This is just
Just
physiology and physics.
how it is. Yeah.
Just physiology and physics. And then as an adult, James Nestor is the guy who wrote the book called Breathe. Both of these books. And again, some people are interested in learning. It affects also, whether you have straight teeth or you have crooked teeth, because as your palate narrows,
Yep.
you go from a regular shaped palate and you get to a pointed shaped palate. Well, guess what? You run out of teeth and your teeth start to get crooked.
Yeah.
But as the structure is repaired again, then guess what? You don't need braces, because your teeth now, as your palate now goes back from being kind of pointed to back to the shape that it's supposed to be, then now you have enough room for your teeth. You don't have to have teeth pulled. You don't need to wear braces, but you now have the proper structure the way you're supposed to in your mouth. So all of that is tied to sleep apnea, to snoring, and to pressure that you inadvertently put on your heart, just as it's a function of respiration.
So if then you decided to do some patching to help facilitate the changes that are necessary for sleep apnea or whatever is going on, where would you put the patches then? And which ones?
So I would do the 39 and 49 at the bare minimum, but I would do 39, 49. If they're already starting to present with some sort of heart kind of issues and so forth, then of course carnosine and eon, glutathione, carnosine and eon. I'm going to say the fantastic five, but at the very least would be 39 and 49. And I would either probably put it on the neck bump, right on the brainstem.
Right.
If we're doing the 5 patches, I might experiment a little bit with taking all 5 patches. And I would ideally, between the 2 temples here and the base of the spine. So you could do X39, X49 on the neck bump. And then I would do glutathione, carnosine, and eon, so that you're basically creating like a crown around the head, so that the energy is focused on just taking care of the skeletal structure and the muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, the nerves, all around the head.
Right. So if that was for, say, a person dealing with sleep apnea, and of course that would be a nighttime issue. So would you put the patches on at night then, specifically for that?
Not necessarily. I would wear the 39 and 49 during the day.
Yeah.
And then I would put the glutathione, the carnosine, and eon. I would wear those. You could wear those at night. You could split it up so that 24/7 you are always getting signals. It's just different signals.
Yeah.
If you wear 39 and 49 at night, you might stay awake because you have increased energy. Some people, depending on their system, they may not be bothered by that, and they could wear all 5 at night. Yeah, so everything is individual, so it would depend on the person. But generally speaking, I would say 39, 49 during the day. Then glutathione, carnosine, and eon, you could wear that at night. Or all 5 during the day.
Oh, good. This is very interesting that I have had 3 people talking about this subject, that they're dealing with sleep apnea. And 2 of them are family members. So
Yeah, and
I thought,
it is a very bothersome thing. And, you know, because you don't get as good a sleep when you're snoring or you have sleep apnea, and people wake up groggy in the morning and so forth. And so it's something to, you know, short term, it's not a big deal. Long term, it does become a big deal, especially if it's going on, you know, years.
yes,
You're gonna have further problems.
yeah.
See if I can find any other pictures. Here's a picture of kind of showing you, these are windows, but it's kind of giving you an idea of what happens to the mouth as it becomes more.
Oh, yes.
Of course, you run
Yeah,
out of room as opposed to having enough room here.
exactly.
And let me see if I can find something else. So here's a kid who had a narrowing of his palate, and his teeth were kind of a mess.
Oh, they sure are.
And look
Oh
at
my goodness.
after he received some of they're basically maxillofacial like exercises and some
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that changed in his sleep habits. And so now his teeth are totally like straight.
It's incredible.
So
Very, very dramatic.
yeah, it is. It can be very dramatic. I'm trying to see if there's any other pictures in here. Yeah. Yep. So let's see if we can find. It's been a while since I read this book. Yeah, you can see it. I don't want to show x-rays here, but here's another young child where, but you can
Oh
clearly
my goodness.
see the difference
Oh, yes.
before and after.
Uh-huh. My goodness. That's very dramatic.
And it doesn't take, like I said, it doesn't take that long. James Nestor, when he started putting a tape on his mouth, and he was really surprised that over the course of that year, his palate actually expanded the width of a penny. So like if you take a penny and you look at how wide a penny is,
Yeah.
just that tiny amount was enough to totally change the look on his face. And then he was able to completely breathe through his nose and stop breathing through his mouth anymore.
That's,
Yeah, and it affects the teeth. Like I said, it's kind of a, it affects more things than you would think. Yeah. So anywho, I hope that
no, that's good information. I appreciate that.
yeah.
Now,
So
I'm gonna make sure people get to see this video that you just made for me. So for us
yeah,
with
so
that explanation.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll post this on YouTube after we're done here so that then you can share the link with them and they can check it out. And then, like I said, this book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called Jaws.
Yeah.
Sandra,
Yeah.
she's a
I've seen
dentist,
that.
Dr. Sandra Kahn and Paul Ehrlich.
Uh-huh.
And the other book,
Excellent.
you know, you can probably look up, I'm sure she has videos on YouTube. I haven't seen them, but probably this was published a long time ago. Let me see how long ago it's been. I should have her come on to my YouTube channel, and this would be great. Let's see. This was 2018.
Oh,
It was a
not
little
bad.
not that long ago, but yeah. So I'm sure she must have some YouTube videos by now. So I'll see if I can get her to come on as a guest on the show. And then James Nestor about that book, Breathe. I know he does have a fair number of YouTube videos. A lot of people have interviewed him.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot. He has some really compelling evidence and research that he disclosed in his book called Breathe, which I think a lot of people would really enjoy and benefit, since sleep seems to be a very big pervasive problem for the average American.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Sounds good. All right, my friend.
Excellent. Thank you. Wow.
So we're going to wrap it up today. We talked about snoring, sleep apnea, how that affects your cardiology, your cardiac system, how it does affect your blood pressure, your micro and macro circulatory system. It affects your peripherals like your hands and your legs. And so what some of the signs and the symptoms are and things to look out and little things that you can do. Again, you already have a pillow. You can roll up that pillow. You can position yourself and be more mindful of how you lay down when you position yourself to go to sleep. A lot of, some people will toss and turn. Sometimes they toss and turn because they're waking up because of bad positioning.
Yeah.
Once you have proper positioning and you breathe completely, then your body will completely, fully relax. And there's no need for you to wake up in the middle of the night because you're getting fully oxygenated. And then you'll go into the deep REM sleep. And then you'll find that when you wake up in the morning, you will have awakened, in the same position that you went to sleep at night. So that's a good sign. So that's
Excellent.
it. Okay.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
All righty. Well, you have a beautiful rest of your evening. Enjoy, my friend and Jem. It's always good to see you. Ciao for now. And thank you for your excellent questions. And we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.